Good evening, everyone. This is Henry Gambell with SimplerOptions.com, and in today's free video I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into how I might look for a trade and just kind of breaking down the index ETFs here. So the first one that I'm going to get started with is SPY for the S&P 500, and some of the things that I was noticing as I was going through these charts today is, okay, SPY has reclaimed its 200-day moving average and is sitting there resting on top of it. If we take a look at the corresponding ETF for the Qs, or the NASDAQ, you can see that this one is not quite as bullish. The NASDAQ has come right up into those levels and has been able to hold resistance. Okay, so maybe that's a feather in the hat of bears here. We're not getting too carried away, but it's just kind of the thought process. Then if you come over and take a look at IWM, the small caps are still well below the 200-day moving average, and you can see you also see where the parabolic SAR has shifted, and that's one more thing that helps confirm, at least in the the immediate term, that I think we could see a little bit of selling. The last ETF that I wanted to look at here was the diamonds via DIA. And what I'm looking for in the big scheme of things here, you can look at it on the weekly chart, or in this case I've got it drawn in on the daily, but just trying to get this to come into, we'll hide our study so it's a bit more obvious, but you've got what I've been just charting. Obviously it hasn't played out yet, but in my mind I see this as being a big break in this trend line that we saw so long ago, and then we saw not quite the flash crash, but that's what everybody's been calling it. Obviously we saw that move, retraced all of it. Just in the big picture, what I'm trying to point out is that I feel like this could be a bigger distribution top, and if it's going to play out, well then I need to see that this key level that the Dow has come into today continues to hold as resistance. Okay, the indexes haven't been terribly easy to play, but if I can ground myself with this first part of the analysis, then I can come over to something like IBM, obviously a big part of the Dow, and then I start asking myself if I have any type of similar signals here. Now it isn't perfect, and I am going to watch to see if this can trigger for me tomorrow, meaning taking a smaller time frame chart, see some selling there before jumping into the idea. But I like looking back at these previous rallies that have preceded the major decline, and just noting that we're getting up into some of these places to start making some decisions. Now they're not perfect, and you can see how by a few cents we have kind of eked up through those, but the rallies that precede major declines are always interesting to me, because you're saying we had a given point value rally and then a very significant decline. Well, here's a very similar point value rally. Can we follow through with a similar pattern? So I've kind of started that by anchoring it from the Dow, dropping it down into IBM, where we can have these patterns of symmetry on the weekly chart. Ideally our voodoo lines and sell signals hold off of the daily, and then we can come in and take a look at two spreads in this. This also is just depending on how aggressive you'd like to be with it, but the two that I'm going to look at tomorrow, two various series. The weekly here doesn't offer you a ton of premium, but I think if you're willing to sell a call spread in the money, do that about $2 wide, then that could ideally give you some good bearish exposure that you could wrap up prior to Friday's employment data. If you want to give yourself a little bit more time and room to navigate the position, stepping out in April and doing that $2.50 wide, around 150 would be a very similar concept. So those are the two of the trades that I'm going to be looking at on Tuesday, see if I can trigger myself to get into them, and that's what I'll be following. Now if those don't work out, what are some things that I might be using to help myself manage them? Well, a lot of them will be taught tomorrow night. So if you hadn't had a chance to check it out yet, Bruce will be giving a course on defending your trades tomorrow. So the first part of this is going to be tomorrow, March 29th, from 6 to 9 Central Time. So if you'd like to check that out, there will be a link to sign up after the video. And if you find that helpful, I hope to see you there.